Oh, how I remember that fateful evening. The kind where the sun dips low and paints the sky in hues of gold and crimson, whispering promises of forever. I was Sarah, a woman in her early 30s, living what I thought was the perfect life in our cozy suburban home. My husband Mark was my rock, or so I believed. We'd been married for 7 years, building dreams together, from lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and laughter to planning our future family. He was the charming architect who designed our world, and I was the devoted teacher who filled it with warmth and stories for the children I adored. Life felt like a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of love and trust. Mark would come home with flowers, his eyes sparkling as he'd pull me into a dance in our kitchen, the radio playing soft melodies. "You're my everything, Sarah," he'd say, his voice like a gentle breeze. And I believed him, every word wrapping around my heart like a warm embrace. My best friend Lisa was the third piece of our puzzle. We'd known each other since college, sharing secrets, tears, and triumphs. She was the vibrant soul who brought color to my days, always there with a listening ear or a spontaneous adventure. Together, the three of us were unbreakable, a family forged not by blood, but by choice. But even in paradise, shadows lurk. Little things started to whisper doubts, though I pushed them away like unwelcome guests. Mark's late nights at the office, his phone buzzing at odd hours, the way he'd smile at his screen when he thought I wasn't looking. I chalked it up to stress from work, his big project that promised to elevate our lives. And Lisa, she'd been distant lately, her visits less frequent, her laughter a bit forced. "Just busy with my new job," she'd say, hugging me tightly as if to seal the lie. One crisp autumn afternoon, as leaves danced in the wind outside our window, I decided to surprise Mark at his office. I baked his favorite chocolate chip cookies, imagining his delighted grin. The drive there was filled with anticipation, my heart fluttering like a bird in flight. But as I approached his building, something felt off, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. I parked and walked in, the receptionist greeting me with a knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Up the elevator, down the hall, my steps echoing like a countdown, and there, through the glass door of his office, my world began to crack. Mark and Lisa, entangled in an embrace that spoke of secrets long hidden. Her hands in his hair, his lips on hers. It was a scene from a nightmare I never imagined. My breath caught, the cookies tumbling from my grasp, shattering on the floor like my illusions. I didn't burst in. I couldn't. Instead, I turned and fled, tears blurring the world as I drove home, the weight of betrayal pressing down like an invisible storm. That night, alone in our bed, the sheets cold and empty, I replayed every moment. How had I been so blind? The love I cherished was a facade, built on lies that now threatened to bury me. But in the depths of that pain, a spark ignited not of rage, but of quiet resolve. I wouldn't let this destroy me. No, this was just the beginning of a story that would redefine everything. The days that followed were a blur of heartache, each one heavier than the last. I confronted Mark that very evening, my voice trembling as I stood in our living room, the air thick with unspoken truths. "How could you?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He looked at me with those eyes I once trusted, feigning shock at first, then crumbling into apologies. "It was a mistake, Sarah, Lisa and I. It just happened. Please forgive me." But his words rang hollow like echoes in an empty chamber. Lisa called later, her voice breaking over the phone. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. It wasn't meant to hurt you. Sorry." That word couldn't mend the shards of my shattered heart. I felt crushed, as if the weight of their deception had collapsed my entire world. Sleepless nights turned into weeks of isolation. I'd wander our home like a ghost, touching photos of happier times, our wedding day, vacations with Lisa laughing beside us. Every memory was tainted now, poisoned by their betrayal. Friends noticed my withdrawal, but I couldn't bear to share the truth yet. "Are you okay?" They'd ask, concern etching their faces. I'd force a smile, nodding, while inside storms raged. The pain was physical, a constant ache in my chest, as if my heart had been torn open and left exposed. Work became my refuge, though even there, doubts crept in. As a teacher, I poured my energy into my students, their innocent faces a reminder of purity in a world gone dark. But at home, the silence screamed. Mark moved out temporarily, begging for a chance to make amends, but I needed space to breathe, to process the ruins. Lisa vanished from my life, her texts unanswered, her presence a ghost I couldn't face. I discovered more through subtle clues, shared emails, whispered conversations overheard in my mind. They'd been together for months, planning trips disguised as work, laughing at my naivety behind my back. The realization hit like waves crashing against rocks. I wasn't just cheated on. I was replaced in my own story. Anger simmered beneath the sorrow, bubbling up in moments of clarity. Why me? What had I done to deserve this erosion of trust? I journaled my thoughts, pages filled with raw emotion, betrayal's sting, the loneliness that followed. Therapy helped, a kind voice guiding me through the fog. "You're stronger than this," my counselor said. And slowly I began to believe it. One evening, as rain pattered against the windows, I sat with a glass of wine, staring at old photos on my phone. A message popped up, an anonymous tip from a colleague who'd seen them together. It confirmed everything, but also ignited a fire. No more victim. I started piecing together evidence, not for confrontation, but for something deeper. I confided in a close friend, Emily, who held me as I cried. "They can't get away with this," she said fiercely. Her support was a lifeline, pulling me from the abyss. As the pain evolved, so did I. From crushed to resilient, I shifted. I hired a private investigator discreetly, uncovering layers of deceit, financial ties, hidden accounts where Mark funneled money for their escapades. Lisa, my supposed sister in spirit, had been plotting to take my place. The betrayal deepened, but so did my strength. I exercised, meditated, rebuilt myself brick by brick. "This ends on my terms," I whispered to my reflection one morning, eyes fierce and unbroken. But what I didn't know then was how far their web extended, touching our shared friends, our community. The shift from heartbreak to empowerment was subtle, like dawn breaking after endless night. I was ready to face the storm head on, no longer the fragile woman they discarded. With the truth in my hands, I orchestrated a revelation that would stun everyone. It wasn't about destruction. It was about justice, exposing the shadows to light. I invited our closest friends and family to a gathering at our home, framing it as a reconciliation dinner. Mark agreed eagerly, thinking it was his second chance. Lisa, hesitant but curious, showed up too, her eyes darting nervously. The evening started pleasantly, laughter filling the air as wine flowed. But as dessert arrived, I stood, my voice steady despite the racing heart. "Thank you all for coming," I began, a soft smile masking the resolve. "Tonight, I share a story not of love, but of truth." I projected slides on the wall, emails, photos, bank statements. The evidence lay bare like an open wound. Gasps echoed as Mark's face paled, Lisa's hands trembling. "Sarah, please," Mark pleaded, but I continued, my words calm yet piercing. "You both shattered my world, but tonight yours crumbles." The room erupted in whispers, friends turning away in disgust. Mark's business partners, present that night, withdrew support immediately, his career teetering. Lisa's reputation, built on our shared circle, dissolved like mist. She fled in tears, her apologies drowned out by the judgment. Mark left humiliated, his pleas falling on deaf ears. In the days that followed, The fallout was swift. Divorce papers were served, assets divided fairly thanks to the proof I'd gathered. Mark lost clients, his once promising firm struggling. Lisa faced isolation, her social life in tatters. But my revenge wasn't just exposure. It was rebirth. I channeled the pain into a blog, sharing my journey anonymously at first, then boldly. Women reached out, their stories mirroring mine, forming a community of healing. I found love again, not in another, but in myself. New hobbies bloomed, painting, traveling alone, discovering strengths I never knew dot as months passed. Peace settled like a gentle snowfall. Mark and Lisa faded into lessons learned, their consequences a mirror to their choices. I walked freer, heart mended not by vengeance, but by truth's embrace. In the end, betrayal taught me this. Trust is fragile, but so is deceit. When shattered, we can rebuild stronger, wiser. Let this be a whisper to all betray, not the ones who love you, for the payback may stun. But the real victory is in rising from the ashes, unbroken and alive.